Hey everyone! Let me tell you about this fantastic movie called When We First Met from 2018. If you're in the mood for a romantic comedy that's got heart, humor, and a clever twist on time and relationships, this is one you absolutely need to check out. I'm here to convince you why this film deserves a spot on your watch list, especially if you love stories that mix everyday awkwardness with a bit of magic, all wrapped up in laughs and those feel-good moments that stick with you. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll be hitting play on Netflix because that's where it lives, and it's perfect for a cozy night in or sharing with friends who appreciate a smart rom-com. First off, let's talk about what makes this movie so appealing right from the start. It's a story about love, timing, and second chances, centered around a guy named Noah who's dealing with that classic what-if scenario in life. He meets this amazing girl named Avery at a Halloween party back in 2014, and from there, things unfold in ways that explore friendship, romance, and how one night can change everything. Without giving anything away, the film cleverly uses a magical element to let Noah revisit that pivotal evening, allowing us to see different possibilities play out. It's inspired by classics like Groundhog Day and Big, but it stands on its own with fresh energy. The beauty is in how it keeps things light and relatable. We've all wondered about roads not taken in our own lives, right? And this movie captures that without getting too heavy, making it a breezy watch that's equal parts funny and thoughtful. If you're tired of predictable romances, this one flips the script in a way that'll have you smiling and maybe even reflecting on your own meet-cutes. Now, one of the biggest reasons to dive into this film is the incredible cast. Leading the charge is DeVine as Noah Ashby. You might know Adam from his hilarious work on Workaholics or films like Pitch Perfect, where he brings that infectious energy and comedic timing that's just unbeatable. In this role, he plays a jazz pianist who's dropped out of business school to follow his passion for music. It's a character that's earnest, a bit clumsy in the best way, and totally rootable. Adam's performance is full of charm. He nails the physical comedy, the heartfelt moments, and those improvised bits that feel so natural. Fun fact, Adam actually contributed to the script early on, though the main writing credit goes elsewhere, and his improvisation shines through, adding that spontaneous vibe that makes scenes pop. He's 32 during filming, but he captures that youthful, hopeful spirit perfectly. Opposite him is Alexandra Daddario as Avery Martin, and wow, does she light up the screen. Alexandra's got those striking blue eyes and a presence that's both approachable and captivating. You've seen her in big hits like San Andreas or the Percy Jackson series, where she shows off her range from action to drama. Here, as Avery, she's the girl next door with depth, a photography student who's fun-loving, independent, and has this effortless coolness. Her chemistry with Adam is spot on, making their interactions feel real and electric. It's one of those performances where you can see why Noah's so smitten, and Alexandra brings layers that make Avery more than just a love interest. She's got her own dreams and quirks that make the story richer. Then there's Shelley Hennig as Carrie Gray, Avery's roommate and best friend. Shelley, who you might recognize from Teen Wolf or The Secret Circle, delivers a standout supporting role here. Carrie's witty, supportive, and has this magnetic energy that steals scenes whenever she's on. Her banter with the group adds so much warmth and humor, and critics have praised her for bringing genuine spark to the film. It's roles like this that show how strong ensemble casts can elevate a movie. Andrew Batchelor, better known as King Bach, plays Max, Noah's buddy who's always there with advice and comic relief. King Bach rose to fame on Vine with his hilarious sketches, and he's since moved into films like The Babysitter. As Max, he's the voice of reason mixed with absurdity, and his timing is impeccable. Think of him as the friend who keeps things grounded while pushing the laughs. Rounding out the main crew is Robbie Amell as Ethan. Robbie's no stranger to rom-coms or sci-fi elements, having starred in The Duff. Actually, he reunites with director Ari Sandel from that film, and shows like The Flash. Ethan is the charming, put-together guy in the story, and Robbie plays him with sincerity that avoids cliches, making him someone you can't help but like. But the cast doesn't stop there. There are tons of great supporting players who add flavor to the world. Dean J. West plays Phil, bringing some extra personality to party scenes. Darren Kahn is the drunk Hulk, which sounds as fun as it is, adding to the Halloween chaos. Peter Jamies Jr. is Chad, Martin Batts Bradford is Devin, and Bertha Bindewald is Marta. Even smaller roles like Sarah Kate Alsop as a Halloween party-goer, Karen Dalfaris as a mother figure, or Emma Dagerstedt in the party crowd help build that lively atmosphere. There's Fatima as Mariah, James Kemp as a bartender, Betsy Medina in the party mix, Phil Meyer as a jazz club patron, Hannah Jacole Powell Yost as the egg in an egg and bacon couple costume. How cute is that? Romero as a bar patron, Robert Raymond Roy as Avery's uncle, and Daryl L. Schuler rounding out the party vibes. These folks might not have big lines, but they make the settings feel alive and immersive. Behind the camera, the magic really happens with director Ari Sandel at the helm. Ari won an Academy Award for his short film West Bank Story back in 2007, which shows his knack for blending humor with heart. He followed that up with The Duff in 2015, another teen rom-com that tackled self-image and relationships with wit. In When We First Met, Ari brings a fresh eye to the time loop concept, keeping the pacing snappy at 97 minutes so it never drags. He shoots it with vibrant energy, especially in the New Orleans settings, capturing that city's charm without overdoing it. It's his direction that makes the repeats feel new each time, focusing on character growth and comedy. The screenplay comes from John Whittington, who's got credits on animated hits like the Lego Batman movie and the Lego Ninjago movie, where he excels at fun, layered storytelling. Here he crafts a script that's clever and avoids spoiling the fun by building tension through Noah's journeys. John collaborated with Adam DeVine initially, but he's the sole credited writer, and it shows in the dialogue that's sharp, relatable, and full of those quotable moments. Production-wise, this film was a Netflix original, released worldwide on February 9, 2018, which means it skipped theaters and went straight to streaming, perfect for binge-watching. The budget was around $9.5 million, which is modest for a rom-com, but allowed for solid production values. It was produced by a team including Michelle Knudsen, MCG, the director of Charlie's Angels and This Means War, bringing his high-energy style as a producer, Mason Novick from MXN Entertainment, Adam Saunders from Footprint Features, and Mary Viola from Wonderland Sound and Vision. Executive producers included Stephen Bello, Adam DeVine himself, Stephen Eddy, Bingo Gubelman, Daniela Kahan, Benji Cohn, James McGow, Peter Pastorelli, Eddie Rubin, Jeremy Kipwalker, and Danny Zamost. They all came together to make this happen, with principal photography starting in mid-July 2016 in New Orleans, Louisiana. Speaking of New Orleans, that's where the entire movie was filmed, and it adds such a unique flavor. The city itself becomes almost a character, with its vibrant streets, jazz vibes, and that unmistakable energy. Key spots include the Crescent City Connection Bridge for some opening scenes. Those cantilever bridges over the Mississippi give it that epic feel. Then there's Pat O'Brien's in the French Quarter, a famous bar that stands in for Danny's Jazz Club, where Noah plays piano. It's got that classic NOLA atmosphere with live music and cocktails, making the scenes there feel authentic and lively. The Halloween party sequences capture the city's love for costumes and festivities, and even though the film doesn't go overboard with touristy shots, it uses the location to enhance the romance and whimsy. Filming in New Orleans wasn't without challenges. The heat and humidity in July can be intense, but the crew made it work, turning the city into a backdrop that's romantic and mysterious. The production team was huge and talented. David Hennings handled cinematography, giving the film a bright, colorful look that pops, especially in the time jump sequences. He worked with camera operators like Joseph Arena on Steadicam for smooth, dynamic shots. Editing was key to making the loops work without repetition feeling boring. And while assistants like Brian Gates helped, the flow keeps you engaged. Art direction by folks like Gina Oppenheim with set decoration by Megan McLaughlin created those detailed environments, from cozy apartments to bustling parties. Costumes by Megan Lewis and the team nailed the 2014 to 2017 vibes with fun Halloween outfits like Noah as Garth from Wayne's World and Avery as a character from A League of Their Own. Music is another highlight that makes this movie so engaging. The score is by Eric V. Hachikian, who crafts tunes that blend jazzy piano elements, fitting for Noah's character with upbeat romantic swells. John Jennings Boyd produced the score, and there are contributions from musicians like Frank Cogliano on guitars, Michael Dobson on drums, and Jesse Reeks on pre-record piano. Sherry Johansson edited the music, Fred Crone added some pieces, and Tracy McKnight supervised it all. The soundtrack features fun tracks that amp up the comedy and emotion. There's That Lil Guy, written by Ali D and Anthony Mirabella, performed by DJ Deeznuts. A remix of Back in Time by Huey Lewis and The News gets a nod with additional production by Jellybean Benitez, and Noah even sings it in a memorable moment, tying into the time travel theme. Other songs include ones by Nicky Sorrentino, and the overall mix keeps the energy high. Sound design ties it all together, with Rachel Grissom as sound mixer, Tony Vellante re-recording, and Alan Zaleski supervising effects that make the magical elements feel seamless. Special effects by Matt Kutcher and his team handled the photo booth magic, inspired by the Zoltar machine from Big, which is a cool trivia nod. Stunts coordinated by Andy Dillon, Rob Mars, and others kept action bits safe and fun, like any chases or falls. Trivia time, because these little details make appreciating the movie even better. The film was originally titled When We First Met, and it stayed that way. Adam DeVine was actually 32 during filming, a bit older than some co-stars like Robbie Amell at 27 and Andrew Batchelor at 27, but it works for the characters. Occasionally, the cast improvised, especially Adam, adding that raw humor. The photo booth is a direct homage to Big's fortune teller, and Noah's Back in Time sing-along is a fun Easter egg for Back to the Future fans. No major awards or nominations for this one. It's more of a crowd pleaser than an Oscar contender, but it holds its own in the Netflix rom-com space. When it comes to reception, it's mixed, but worth noting why it clicks for so many. On Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter sits at 22% from critics, with some saying it struggles in the friend zone of rom-coms. But the critic consensus acknowledges it might not win everyone over right away. However, audiences have given it over 1,000 ratings, and from comments, many find it cute and enjoyable, like one viewer saying it teaches not to change for someone else, or another calling it a really cute movie despite bad reviews. Roger Ebert's site gave it a so-so review, but praised Adam's willingness to go for laughs and Shelley's charming turn. Denegeek called it largely fun with energetic performances and a pivot from the premise. Some critics felt it was dull in parts, but others appreciated the spin on familiar tropes. Overall, it's got a 6.4 on IMDb from over 56,000 votes, showing it's resonated with viewers who love lighthearted escapes. So, why should you watch When We First Met? Because in a world full of heavy dramas and over-the-top blockbusters, this is a breath of fresh air, a 97-minute romp that's quirky, romantic, and full of laughs. It's TV-14 rated, so great for teens and adults, with themes of self-discovery, friendship, and love that hit home without preaching. The New Orleans setting adds exotic charm, the cast's chemistry is electric, and the clever time element keeps you guessing in the best way. Whether you're single, coupled up, or just need a pick-me-up, this movie reminds us that life's about embracing who you are and the unexpected paths that lead to happiness. It's not perfect, but that's what makes it relatable, like real life, with a magical boost. If you're into films that blend comedy with a touch of fantasy, like The Duff or Groundhog Day, this fits right in. The production quality shines through the budget and the behind-the-scenes effort from that massive crew, from location managers like John Francis Collins scouting NOLA spots to makeup heads like Amy Stewart ensuring everyone looks spot on. Makes it polished yet fun. Plus, with Netflix distribution, it's easy to access anytime. I'm so glad you're here because we're not even close to being done talking about this absolute gem of a 2018 romantic comedy called When We First Met. Let me ask you something really quick before we dive even deeper. Have you ever had that one night? That one single, magical, stupidly perfect night with someone? And then life just kept moving and you never got that exact moment back again? That horrible, beautiful feeling of, what if I had said this instead of that? What if I had kissed her? What if I had stayed 5 more minutes? If that question has ever lived even 1 second inside your heart, then trust me, this movie was made for you. And the best part? It doesn't just ask the question. It literally lets the main character go back and try every single different version of that night. Again, and again, and again. And every single time you think, okay, now I know how this ends. The movie goes, nope, one more time. Watch this. And somehow it stays funny. Somehow it stays sweet. Somehow it stays heartbreaking in the most gentle way possible. So let's keep going, because there are still so many delicious little details that make this movie feel extra special. Let's talk more about the cast chemistry, because this is one of those rare movies where literally everyone is clicking on screen in ways that feel effortless and real. Adam DeVine as Noah is doing this beautiful thing where he is simultaneously the most ridiculous version of a guy in love and also the most painfully relatable version of a guy in love. You believe that this guy would spend 3 years quietly, hopelessly, pathetically in love with his best friend, and at the exact same time, you believe that this guy would get drunk and try to fix his entire life by jumping inside a magical photo booth at 2 a.m. That's a very hard tightrope to walk, and Adam walks it like it's nothing. He brings this wide-eyed enthusiasm mixed with total self-sabotage that makes Noah so endearing even when he's making terrible choices. And here's something cool from behind the scenes. Once Adam was cast as the lead, the producers actually asked him to look over the original script and rewrite parts of it to better suit his comedy style. That means a lot of the funniest lines, the awkward pauses, the over-the-top reactions, those feel so authentically Adam because he helped shape them. It's why his performance here feels like a step up from some of his earlier roles. He gets to show not just the goofy side, but also these quiet, vulnerable moments where you see how much Noah really cares, and it hits you right in the chest. Then there's Alexandra Daddario as Avery. Oh man, she is playing the girl that every guy has met at least once in his life. The girl who is so beautiful it hurts, but also so kind and funny and real that you can't even be mad at her for being out of your league. Alexandra brings this warmth and intelligence to Avery that makes her feel like a fully fleshed out person with her own dreams, her own quirks, her own reasons for every decision she makes. You don't just see why Noah's so smitten. You understand it deep down because Avery isn't some prize to be won. She's someone worth knowing, worth fighting for in the right way. And fun fact from production. Due to scheduling conflicts, Alexandra only had 2 weeks to film her scenes because she had to jump straight into another project, We Have Always Lived in the Castle. That meant the team crammed a ton of intense night shoots, sometimes 16+ hours straight, especially for all those Halloween party sequences. Imagine filming those chaotic, costume-filled party scenes under hot lights until dawn. It shows how committed everyone was, and it translates to this energetic, lived-in feel on screen that makes the party feel like a real wild night. And then Shelley Hennig walks in as Carrie, and suddenly, the movie has this extra heartbeat that you didn't even know it needed. Carrie is not just the funny best friend. She is sharp, she is dangerous in the best way. She is smart and sexy, and has this effortless, I could destroy you and you would thank me energy that steals every scene she's in. The way she looks at Noah sometimes, those tiny glances, those little smiles, the way she teases him, but you can feel that maybe, just maybe, there is something else hiding behind the jokes. That is the secret weapon of the entire movie. You're sitting there, thinking the story is heading one obvious direction, and then Shelley gives one look and your whole brain goes, wait, is this actually where the real spark is? And that delicious confusion, that push-pull tension, that's exactly what the filmmakers wanted you to feel. Shelley's performance adds layers of humor and heart that elevate the whole thing, and in interviews and behind-the-scenes stories, it's clear she improvised a lot of her lines, especially in those moments where she and Alexandra are yelling at Noah thinking he's some kind of stalker. Those rants were mostly made up on the spot, and they're gold because they feel so natural and chaotic. Now let's talk about the actual photo booth, because people always ask, is the photo booth thing stupid? And the answer is yes. It is gloriously, wonderfully stupid, and that is precisely why it's perfect. They didn't try to make it super scientific or explain the rules for 20 minutes like some time travel movies do. They basically went, magical photo booth, press button, go back to 2014, have fun. And because they treat it like a silly, almost cartoonish toy instead of a serious time machine, the comedy gets to be huge, and the heart gets to be huge without ever feeling fake or forced. It's directly inspired by the Zoltar fortune teller machine from Big, that wish-granting vibe. But here it's twisted into something more personal and romantic. The special effects team kept it simple and seamless, so the focus stays on the characters and their choices, not on flashy CGI. Every time Noah jumps back, the booth's little flashes and whirs feel like a fun gimmick that propels the story forward without bogging it down. Another thing I absolutely love: the Halloween costumes in this movie are next level and so thoughtfully done. Adam DeVine as Garth from Wayne's World, iconic. The little glasses, the bad hair, the horrible sweater, it's perfection and instantly sets the tone for Noah's awkward charm. Alexandra as Tammy Dottie Hinson from A League of Their Own. So cute, so perfect, so exactly the kind of costume a cool, sporty girl like Avery would actually pick and rock without trying too hard. And then, in the different timelines, as Noah keeps changing things, the costumes shift just slightly, or the party looks a little different, or someone's wearing something completely ridiculous, and it keeps every repeat feeling fresh and hilarious instead of repetitive. The costume department nailed that 2014 vibe while throwing in all these visual Easter eggs that reward paying close attention. It's those small details that make rewatching the movie so rewarding because you catch new little jokes hidden in the background each time. Also, huge shout out to the production design team because they made everything feel lived in and authentic. The apartment that Avery and Carrie share, it feels like a real 20-something girl apartment. Not the glossy, fake, Instagram-perfect version you see in so many rom-coms. The real one, with mismatched furniture, photos pinned to the wall, random plants that are half dead, clothes draped over chairs, that cozy chaos that screams, people actually live here and have lives. The jazz club where Noah plays piano, standing in for Danny's Jazz Club, was shot at Pat O'Brien's in the French Quarter. That famous New Orleans bar with its dueling pianos and hurricane cocktails vibe adds so much atmosphere. You can almost smell the beignets and hear the street musicians outside. The opening aerial shots over the Crescent City Connection bridges give you that sweeping, romantic view of the Mississippi River, setting the stage for a story that's all about crossing bridges, literal and emotional, in your life. The entire film was shot on location in New Orleans during the hot, humid summer of 2016, starting in mid-July, and that city's energy seeps into every frame. New Orleans isn't just a backdrop, it becomes part of the magic. The French Quarter's narrow streets, the live music spilling out of bars, the way the city feels alive at night. It all enhances the romantic, whimsical tone without ever feeling forced or touristy. Director Ari Sandel, who won an Oscar for his short West Bank Story and directed The Duff before this, keeps the pacing tight at just 97 minutes so it never drags, even with the repeating loops. He shoots with vibrant colors and dynamic camera moves that make each timeline variation pop visually. The cinematography by David Hennig gives everything this bright, inviting glow, especially in those party scenes where the lights and costumes create this dreamy, nostalgic haze. The soundtrack is another layer that pulls you right in. Eric V. Hachikian's score mixes jazzy piano riffs, perfect for Noah's character, with upbeat, romantic swells that build emotion without overwhelming the comedy. You've got fun needle drops like Sexy and I Know It by LMFAO blasting during party moments, Shout by the Isley Brothers for those big emotional beats, Back in Time by Huey Lewis and The News getting a remix nod that ties perfectly into the time travel theme, and Noah even belts it out in one hilarious scene. Plus, tracks like That Lil Guy by DJ D's Nuts, Touchin' You by The Practice, My Place by Young Buffalo, and more that keep the energy high and the vibes fun. The music doesn't just play in the background, it comments on the action, amps up the laughs, and underscores those quiet what-if moments that make your heart ache a little. Behind the scenes, the production was a real team effort with a modest $9.5 million budget that stretched far thanks to smart choices. Producers like MCG, from Charlie's Angels fame, Mason Novick, Mary Viola, and Adam Saunders brought experience in high-energy rom-coms, while executive producers, including Adam DeVine himself, helped keep the vision true. Principal photography wrapped efficiently despite the heat and long nights, and the massive crew, from location scouts finding those perfect NOLA spots to makeup artists keeping everyone looking fresh through marathon shoots, all contributed to this polished yet playful final product. So why does all this matter? Because When We First Met isn't just another Netflix rom-com to scroll past. It's a movie that takes a familiar premise, the friend zone, the what-if regret, the magical redo, and infuses it with genuine heart, sharp humor, and performances that make you root for everyone, even when they're messing up spectacularly. It challenges you to think about what really matters in love, not forcing a perfect moment, but recognizing the right one when it's there. The mixed reviews, some critics called it predictable or dull in spots, with a low Rotten Tomatoes score from pros, but audiences on IMDb at 6.4, and viewer comments praising its cuteness and lessons about self-acceptance, show it's a crowd pleaser that connects on a personal level. The apartment that Avery and Carrie share isn't some shiny, perfectly staged set piece you see in a lot of Hollywood rom-coms. It's messy in the most comforting way possible. There are stacks of photography books piled on the coffee table because Avery's always chasing that next great shot. Half-finished mugs of coffee left from late-night talks, fairy lights strung haphazardly across one wall because Carrie thought it would look cute and then never bothered to take them down properly. A couch that's clearly been sat on by 1,000 different friends over the years, with those little permanent dents in the cushions that scream, "This place has stories." It feels real. It feels like the kind of apartment you've either lived in or crashed at after a long night out, where the fridge is covered in Polaroids and random magnets from places nobody's been in years, and every corner has a little bit of personality leaking out. That level of detail didn't happen by accident. The set decoration team, led by Megan McLaughlin, spent real time making sure every prop told a mini story about who these women are when the camera isn't rolling. It pulls you in subconsciously. You start believing these people actually exist beyond the script. And speaking of believing these people exist, let's circle back to Robbie Amell as Ethan, because he's the guy who could have easily been reduced to the perfect boyfriend foil. The handsome, successful, nice guy alternative that makes Noah look even more of a mess by comparison. But Robbie plays him with such genuine warmth and zero smugness that you never hate him, even when you're rooting against him. Ethan's the kind of character who could have come off as boring or smug in lesser hands, but Robbie gives him this quiet confidence and kindness that makes you think, okay, yeah, I get why Avery would choose him in some timelines. It's a subtle performance that keeps the emotional stakes high without ever tipping into villain territory. Fun little production note, Robbie and Adam had actually worked together before in a small capacity years earlier, so there was already this easy camaraderie that translates into scenes where the three guys, Noah, Ethan, and Max, are hanging out. Those bro moments feel lived in because the actors weren't forcing it. They were just riffing off each other between takes, and a lot of that natural energy made it into the final cut. King Bach as Max deserves his own spotlight too because he's the ultimate hype man / best friend character done right. Max isn't just there to deliver punchlines. Although he delivers some absolute bangers, he's the one who calls Noah out when he's being an idiot. But he does it with so much love that it never feels mean. Andrew Bachelor brings this effortless coolness mixed with ridiculous physical comedy that makes Max the perfect counterbalance to Noah's spiraling anxiety. There's a scene where Max is trying to talk sense into Noah while they're both half drunk, and it's one of those moments where you laugh out loud but also feel the weight of real friendship underneath it. King Bach improvised a bunch of his reactions and one-liners, especially in the group hangouts, and the directors encouraged it because it kept the energy loose and fun. That's the kind of freedom that makes ensemble comedy sing. When everyone trusts each other enough to play, the movie stops feeling scripted and starts feeling like you're eavesdropping on real people. Now let's talk about the actual structure of the time loops, because that's where the movie really shines in ways a lot of people don't give it credit for. A lesser film would have made every loop feel exactly the same, except for one big obvious change. Kiss her this time, don't kiss her that time, say the line, don't say the line. But When We First Met gets smarter as it goes. Each trip back isn't just a reset button. The changes compound. Noah starts learning little things about Avery and Carrie and Ethan and even himself that carry forward emotionally, even if the night technically resets. The movie slowly reveals that the real journey isn't about nailing the perfect version of Halloween 2014. It's about figuring out who he wants to be when the booth spits him back into the present. And because the loops keep escalating in absurdity and heartbreak, the comedy never gets stale. One timeline, he tries to be super suave and it backfires hilariously. Another, he goes full chaotic gremlin and it's even worse. Another, he tries to play it safe and realizes safe is boring. Each variation builds on the last, so by the time you hit the later loops, you're laughing at how far he's willing to go while also quietly cheering for him to finally get it. Director Ari Sandel keeps all of this from feeling repetitive by changing the visual language slightly with every jump. Sometimes the camera lingers longer on a reaction shot. Sometimes the lighting shifts to match Noah's mood. Sometimes the editing gets faster and more frantic as the desperation builds. It's subtle directing, but it keeps your eyes glued because you're never quite sure what new detail you're going to notice. The 97-minute runtime is perfect, long enough to let the premise breathe and explore multiple loops deeply, short enough that it never overstays its welcome. For a Netflix original with a $9.5 million budget, it punches way above its weight class in polish and creativity. The New Orleans setting keeps giving back too. Beyond the obvious French Quarter jazz club scenes and the Crescent City Connection bridge shots that open the film with this sweeping romantic glow over the Mississippi, there are quieter moments. Walking along Magazine Street at dusk, grabbing beignets from a corner cafe, the way street lamps reflect off wet pavement after a quick rain, that add this layer of southern magic without turning it into a tourism ad. New Orleans has always had this reputation as a city where anything feels possible at night, where time feels a little looser, and the filmmakers leaned into that vibe hard. It makes the idea of a magical photo booth feel almost plausible, like if such a thing existed anywhere, it would be in a dimly lit bar on Bourbon Street, or hidden in the back of some forgotten arcade in the Marigny. The soundtrack keeps threading through everything like another character. Those Huey Lewis, back in time nods aren't just cute Easter eggs. They're a wink to the audience that we're in on the joke, but they also land emotionally when Noah belts it out in one of the loops, half drunk and half hopeful. The jazzy score from Eric V. Hachikian weaves in and out, sometimes playful, sometimes achingly tender, especially in the quieter scenes where Noah's sitting alone realizing he might have been looking for love in the wrong place all along. Combined with the pop tracks that blast during the party sequences, it creates this perfect balance of high energy and intimate reflection. So here's the real pitch, the one I keep coming back to every time someone asks me if When We First Met is worth watching. This isn't a movie about winning the girl. It's a movie about winning yourself back. It's about realizing that obsessing over one missed moment can blind you to all the other moments happening right in front of you. It's funny as hell, like fall off the couch, pause to breathe funny. But it's also kind. It doesn't mock its characters for being messy or hopeful or scared. It celebrates them. And in a sea of cynical, mean-spirited comedies or overly saccharine romances, that kindness feels rare and necessary. If you've made it this far with me, you're probably already sold. But just in case, put it on tonight. Dim the lights, grab something cozy to drink, maybe text a friend, "You have to watch this with me next time," and let Noah take you on the ride. You'll laugh until your sides hurt. You might get a little misty in the best way. And when the credits roll, you'll feel lighter, like maybe the universe isn't as cruel about timing as we sometimes think it is. When We First Met isn't perfect. It's better than perfect. It's honest. And honest rom-coms with big laughs and bigger hearts don't come around every day. The apartment that Avery and Carrie share isn't some shiny, perfectly staged set piece you see in a lot of Hollywood rom-coms. It's messy in the most comforting way possible. There are stacks of photography books piled on the coffee table because Avery's always chasing that next great shot. Half-finished mugs of coffee left from late-night talks. Fairy lights strung haphazardly across one wall because Carrie thought it would look cute, and then never bothered to take them down properly. A couch that's clearly been sat on by 1,000 different friends over the years, with those little permanent dents in the cushions that scream, "This place has stories." It feels real. It feels like the kind of apartment you've either lived in or crashed at after a long night out, where the fridge is covered in Polaroids and random magnets from places nobody's been in years, and every corner has a little bit of personality leaking out. That level of detail didn't happen by accident. The set decoration team, led by Megan McLaughlin, spent real time making sure every prop told a mini-story about who these women are when the camera isn't rolling. It pulls you in subconsciously. You start believing these people actually exist beyond the script. And that belief is what makes the emotional beats land so hard later on. When Noah's standing in that living room, awkwardly holding a six-pack or trying to act normal while his brain is screaming, The space itself feels like it's holding its breath right along with him. And speaking of holding your breath, let's talk about the quiet moments that sneak up on you in this movie, because they're just as important as the big laugh-out-loud ones. There are these little scenes: Noah sitting on a bench outside the jazz club after a bad loop, staring at the river like it has answers, or Avery casually mentioning a dream she's had since college while they're walking through the French Quarter at golden hour, or Carrie leaning against the kitchen counter, glass of wine in hand, giving Noah that half smirk that says she sees right through him but still likes him anyway. Those beats are where the movie stops being just a time loop comedy and starts being something deeper. Ari Sandel directs those scenes with real restraint. He doesn't rush the camera or slap on swelling music every single time. Sometimes he just lets the silence sit, lets Adam's face do the talking, lets Alexandra's eyes carry the weight. It's those pauses that make the funny parts funnier and the sweet parts sweeter, because you've earned them. You've seen the character fail enough times that when something genuine finally happens, it feels like a victory, not a cliché. One of my favorite subtle touches is how the movie handles the passage of time outside the loops. In the real timeline, the present day we keep returning to, 3 years have passed since that first Halloween night. Noah's hair is a little longer, his apartment's a little messier, his jazz gigs are still small, but he's still showing up. Avery's photography has gotten better. You see her prints on the wall evolve from student work to something more confident. Carrie's still the same sharp, loyal roommate, but there's this quiet maturity in how she handles her own life. Those tiny changes ground the fantasy. Without them, the loops would feel like a video game reset. With them, every jump back to 2014 feels like a betrayal of the life that's been building in the present. It's a smart script choice by John Whittington. He never lets you forget that time is moving forward even when Noah's trying to cheat it. That tension keeps the stakes personal and real. And the stakes do get personal. Without spoiling anything, there comes a point where Noah has to confront whether he's chasing a memory or chasing a person. Is he in love with Avery the way she was on that one perfect night? Or is he in love with who she actually is? Flaws, new boyfriend, different dreams and all? The movie doesn't hit you over the head with the question. It lets the loops themselves answer it. Each failed attempt peels back another layer of Noah's insecurities, his ego, his fear of being just the friend. Adam DeVine is brilliant at showing that unraveling. His comedy is never just slapstick. It's rooted in this very specific kind of male vulnerability that a lot of rom-coms gloss over. He's willing to look pathetic, desperate, even a little pathetic in the best way, because that's what real longing looks like sometimes. And because he goes there, the payoff moments feel earned. The supporting cast keeps elevating everything too. Beyond the main four, you've got these wonderful little cameos and bit parts that add texture. The bartender at the jazz club who gives Noah the exact same "You okay, man?" look every loop. The random partygoers dressed as eggs and bacon who become running gags. Even the random uncle character who shows up in one timeline and drops a perfectly timed line that cracks everyone up. None of them are wasted. They all help build the world so that when Noah keeps jumping back, it feels like he's disrupting something alive and breathing, not just a static set. Visually, the film keeps finding new ways to make the repeats pop. One loop might be shot with warmer golden lighting because Noah's feeling hopeful. The next might have harsher shadows because he's spiraling. The photo booth itself gets funnier and more ridiculous the more you see it. That cheap red curtain, the flickering bulb, the way the seat squeaks every single time someone sits down. By the third or fourth jump, just hearing the mechanical whir makes you laugh because you know chaos is coming. It's classic comedy escalation done right. The New Orleans flavor keeps seeping in too. There's a scene where Noah's walking along the riverfront at night, the lights from the bridge reflecting on the water, and you can feel the city's pulse. That mix of melancholy and celebration that makes NOLA so unique. The humidity in the July shoot is practically visible in some shots. Everyone's hair is a little frizzy, shirts cling a little, but instead of looking sloppy, it looks lived in. It matches the characters perfectly. Beautiful, but a little sweaty. Romantic, but a little messy. By now you're probably thinking, okay, I get it. It's good. But is it really that good? And yeah, it is. Not in a life-changing masterpiece way, but in the way the best comfort movies are. It sees you. It sees the part of you that still wonders about that one person, That one night, that one almost. It doesn't judge you for wondering. It just takes your hand, puts you in a ridiculous photo booth with a guy who's even more hopeless than you are, and says, "Let's figure this out together. And let's laugh while we do it." So if you haven't watched it yet, what are you waiting for? It's 97 minutes. It's on Netflix. It's got Adam DeVine at his most charmingly disastrous, Alexandra Daddario being impossibly likable, Shelley Hennig quietly stealing the whole damn thing, and a city that feels like it's in love with the characters as much as they're in love with each other. Put it on. Let it surprise you. Let it make you laugh until you snort. Let it make you text an old friend at 1 a.m. Let it remind you that sometimes the best love stories aren't about getting the timing perfect. They're about getting brave enough to try again, even when the odds suck. It feels like the kind of apartment you've either lived in or crashed at after a long night out, where the fridge is covered in Polaroids and random magnets from places nobody's been in years, and every corner has a little bit of personality leaking out. That level of detail didn't happen by accident. The set decoration team, led by Megan McLaughlin, spent real time making sure every prop told a mini story about who these women are when the camera isn't rolling. It pulls you in subconsciously. You start believing these people actually exist beyond the script, and that belief is what makes the emotional beats land so hard later on. When Noah's standing in that living room, awkwardly holding a six-pack or trying to act normal while his brain is screaming, the space itself feels like it's holding its breath right along with him. Like the walls have heard every late-night confession and every hopeful plan that never quite worked out. Like the apartment itself is quietly rooting for someone, anyone, to finally get it right. Those quiet, in-between moments keep sneaking up and stealing the show in the gentlest way. There's this one scene where Noah is just leaning against the kitchen counter after a particularly brutal loop, watching Avery move around the room like nothing's changed, and the look on his face is this perfect cocktail of exhaustion, affection, and that tiny flicker of hope that refuses to die no matter how many times he's punched himself in the feelings. Alexandra doesn't even have to say much. She just glances over, gives a small, tired smile, and keeps doing whatever she's doing. And in that 1 second, the entire weight of 3 years of unspoken things hangs in the air. No big speech, no dramatic music cue. Just two people who know each other too well and not well enough, existing in the same room, and it hurts in the best possible way. Ari Sandel knows exactly when to pull back, when to let the actors' faces and the silence do the heavy lifting, and those choices turn what could have been a lightweight time loop romp into something that lingers long after the credits roll. Friendship is the real heartbeat running underneath all the romance and the resets. Noah and Max aren't just buddies for the sake of comic relief. They're the kind of friends who've seen each other at their absolute worst and still show up. There's this recurring thing where Max will look at Noah like, "I've told you this 100 times, man," but he never actually walks away. He stays, he listens. He mocks him mercilessly, sure, but he stays. And you feel that loyalty in every eye roll, every sarcastic, "You're welcome," every time he drags Noah out of his own head for 5 minutes. King Bach plays it with such natural warmth that Max never feels like a sidekick. He feels like the guy who's been holding the whole operation together since day one. The same energy flows between Avery and Carrie. They bicker like sisters. They tease each other without mercy. But when push comes to shove, there's this unspoken pact that nothing and no one gets between them. You see it in the way Carrie immediately clocks Noah's weird behavior and goes full protective mode, or how Avery trusts Carrie's read on people more than her own sometimes. Those bonds make the stakes feel bigger because it's not just about who Noah ends up with. It's about whether he's willing to risk the family he's already built in the process. The little visual gags keep piling up in the best way too. Every time Noah jumps back, you start noticing new background details that weren't there before, or weren't noticeable until now. The egg and bacon couple is in slightly different positions each loop, arguing about the exact same thing with escalating ridiculousness. The guy dressed as the hot dog keeps finding new ways to spill condiments on himself. One extra in the corner is always holding the same red Solo cup, but wearing progressively more confused expressions as Noah's behavior gets weirder and weirder across timelines. It's also lovingly chaotic. Like the production team said, "Let's make every single background person have their own tiny arc," and then actually did it. Those details turn the repeats from potentially boring into a treasure hunt. You're laughing at Noah's disasters, but also scanning the frame for the next visual joke, and it keeps your eyes locked to the screen. The jazz club remains one of the most soulful anchors in the whole film. Every time Noah walks back into that dimly lit room, sits at the piano, and lets his fingers find the keys, it's like the movie exhales. The music isn't flashy, it's warm, a little imperfect, full of feeling. You can tell Adam DeVine actually practiced those pieces because the way he plays feels personal, like Noah poured every ounce of his confusion and longing into those chords. The crowd in the background isn't just extras. They're swaying, nodding, smiling in that quiet way people do when a song hits them right in the chest. Pat O'Brien's real-life vibe, the worn bar stools, the faint haze of cigarette smoke from decades past, even though it's smoke-free now, the way the piano sounds slightly tinny because it's an old upright. All of it seeps into the scenes and makes them feel lived in and timeless. New Orleans itself keeps whispering through every frame. The city doesn't rush you, it doesn't judge you, it just lets you be a little lost, and a little in love at the same time. And that's really the secret sauce of When We First Met. It never rushes you either. It lets you sit with the mess. It lets Noah be a disaster for a while. It lets the audience feel the full weight of wanting something so badly you're willing to bend reality to get it, only to realize maybe reality knew what it was doing all along. The film doesn't preach. It doesn't tie everything up with a giant bow and pretend life is simple. It just says, yeah, timing sucks sometimes. Yeah, we screw up spectacularly. Yeah, we hurt people we care about without meaning to. But we keep showing up anyway. We keep trying. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that's enough. If you're still reading this far into my endless love letter to this movie, I'm honestly touched. It means you get it. Or at least you're curious enough to want to get it. So do yourself the favor. Cue it up. Make it the next thing you watch when the house is quiet and your brain won't shut up about old almosts and maybes. Let Noah stumble through his loops so you can laugh at his chaos and maybe, just maybe, forgive a little bit of your own. Let the New Orleans night wrap around the story like a second blanket. Let Shelley Hennig's smirk break your heart in the quietest way. Let Adam DeVine make you believe that even the most hopeless romantic can find his way home. It feels like the kind of apartment you've either lived in or crashed at after a long night out, where the fridge is covered in Polaroids and random magnets from places nobody's been in years, and every corner has a little bit of personality leaking out. That level of detail didn't happen by accident. The set decoration team, led by Megan McLaughlin, spent real time making sure every prop told a mini-story about who these women are when the camera isn't rolling. It pulls you in subconsciously. You start believing these people actually exist beyond the script, and that belief is what makes the emotional beats land so hard later on. When Noah's standing in that living room, awkwardly holding a six-pack or trying to act normal while his brain is screaming, the space itself feels like it's holding its breath right along with him, like the walls have heard every late-night confession and every hopeful plan that never quite worked out. Like the apartment itself is quietly rooting for someone, anyone, to finally get it right. Because places like that remember everything. Those quiet moments keep coming back to me every time I think about this film. The ones where nothing huge is happening on the surface, but everything is shifting underneath. There's a stretch where Noah is just walking through the French Quarter alone after another loop collapses. The street's still buzzing from the party but starting to wind down. Neon signs flickering off one by one, a lone saxophone drifting from some bar he'll never go into. The camera stays on Adam's face longer than you expect. No quick cuts, no joke to break the tension, and you watch the exact moment hope turns into something heavier, something closer to acceptance. David Henning's cinematography shines in these scenes. He uses the natural glow of street lamps and the soft humidity in the air to create this dreamy haze that makes everything feel a little unreal, like the city itself is part of the time loop magic. It's New Orleans doing what New Orleans does best, holding space for melancholy without ever letting it drown you completely. And speaking of the city, let's not forget how much the location scouts and the entire crew earned their paychecks that summer of 2016. Shooting in mid-July meant dealing with heat that could melt resolve, sudden downpours that flooded streets in minutes, tourists everywhere because it's peak season, but they turned every challenge into texture. You feel the sweat on the actor's skin in the outdoor scenes, the way shirts stick and hair frizzes, But instead of looking uncomfortable, it looks authentic. Like these characters are really out there living through a long, sticky night that refuses to end the way they want. The production team worked with local crew who knew every hidden courtyard, every bar that would let them film after hours, every shortcut through the quarter that avoids the biggest crowds. That insider knowledge shows up in small ways. A quick shot of a second-line parade passing in the background, the sound of a brass band warming up down the block. The way locals in the jazz club scenes aren't just extras, but actual musicians who know how to react when someone hits a wrong note on piano. It's the difference between a movie that's set in New Orleans and one that actually breathes it. The sound design deserves more love too because it's doing quiet, brilliant work the whole time. Listen closely during the photo booth transitions. There's this low mechanical hum that starts soft and builds, mixed with a faint echo of party laughter that warps slightly, like time itself is stretching. Then when Noah lands back in 2014, everything snaps into focus with a crispness that makes you feel the reset right alongside him. The sound effects team, supervised by Alan Zaleski, layered in tiny details you might not consciously notice, but you absolutely feel. The squeak of the booth's vinyl seat, the click of the curtain rings, the way the flashbulb pops with just enough distortion to feel magical instead of cheap. And in the present-day scenes, 3 years later, the same locations have a slightly different acoustic. Traffic sounds a little louder, the jazz club piano a touch more worn. Subtle cues that time has passed, even if Noah keeps trying to ignore it. I keep coming back to how generous this movie is with its characters. Nobody is the villain, not really. Even when people make choices that hurt Noah or frustrate him or force him to grow up in ways he doesn't want to, the film never paints them as wrong or cruel. It just shows them as human, with their own dreams, their own fears, their own reasons for moving forward even when someone else wishes they'd stay stuck in 2014 forever. That generosity extends to the audience too. The movie trusts you to feel complicated things, to laugh at Noah's disasters, to ache for his longing, to maybe even get a little angry at him for not seeing what's right in front of him, and then to forgive him because you've been there yourself. It's rare for a comedy to hold space for all those emotions without ever feeling manipulative or overly earnest. If I haven't convinced you yet, let me try one last angle. This is the perfect I need something comforting but not mindless watch. It's smart enough to surprise you, sweet enough to warm you, funny enough to make a rough day disappear for 97 minutes. It's the movie you put on when you want to believe that second chances exist, not in some grand cinematic way with explosions and speeches, but in the small, everyday way where you finally notice the person who's been noticing you all along. It's the movie that reminds you that being a little lost is okay, that making a fool of yourself for love isn't the worst thing in the world, that sometimes the universe has to drag you through the same night a dozen different ways before you're ready to walk into the next morning. So here we are, at the end of this ridiculously long celebration of a little 2018 Netflix rom-com that probably flew under a lot of radars, but deserves so much more love. When We First Met is funny, heartfelt, beautifully shot, perfectly cast, and quietly wise in ways that sneak up on you days later. It's Adam DeVine at his most lovable, Alexandra Daddario at her most radiant, Shelley Hennig quietly breaking your heart with a single look, all wrapped up in New Orleans magic, and a photo booth that somehow feels like the most romantic invention in movie history. The French Quarter at night becomes almost another character as the loops pile up, doesn't it? Every time Noah steps out of that photo booth and back into 2014, the streets look the same at first glance. Same wrought iron balconies dripping with beads from some long-gone Mardi Gras. Same gas lamps flickering like they've been doing it for a century. Same distant trumpet notes floating over the rooftops. But the mood shifts depending on how badly he's about to screw things up this time. In the hopeful loops, the quarter feels alive and inviting, full of possibility, like the city is winking at him and saying, "Go get her, kid." In the desperate ones, it turns claustrophobic, the crowds pressing in, the music too loud, the lights too bright, like New Orleans itself is tired of watching him chase the same ghost down the same narrow streets. That push-pull is so smart. The location isn't just pretty scenery. It mirrors Noah's emotional state without ever saying a word about it. You start noticing how the camera lingers on certain details differently each time. A shuttered shop window reflecting his costume one loop, a puddle from an earlier rain capturing the neon glow another. It's those tiny visual poems that make rewatches addictive, because you're not just watching the same night repeat, you're watching the city react to it. One of the things that keeps surprising me on repeat viewings is how much physical comedy Adam DeVine commits to, without ever crossing into cartoon territory. There's this recurring bit where Noah tries to sprint away from awkward conversations or chase after someone and he just trips. Not in a pratfall way that feels rehearsed, but in that very human, limbs flailing, oh no, I'm actually falling now way that makes you wince and laugh at the same time. His stunts coordinator had to choreograph those falls so they looked painful, but not injurious. And Adam apparently insisted on doing most of them himself because he wanted the reactions to feel real. You can tell. The way he catches himself awkwardly, the little groan he lets out, the embarrassed glance around to see if anyone noticed. Spoiler, everyone noticed. It's comedy rooted in embarrassment and vulnerability. The kind that hurts because we've all been that guy at some point. And that relatability is what separates good physical comedy from slapstick that just feels mean. Shelley Hennig's Carrie keeps revealing new layers the more you pay attention to. Early on, she comes across as the classic sarcastic best friend, quick with a comeback, protective, a little guarded. But as the loops progress, and Noah keeps showing up acting weirder and weirder, you start seeing the cracks in that armor. There's this one moment, I won't say exactly when, where she's had enough of his nonsense and she just stops. Stops joking, stops rolling her eyes, stops pretending it's all funny. She looks at him like she's seeing him for the first time, really seeing him, and the shift in her expression is so small but so devastating. It's not loud acting. It's the tiniest tightening of her mouth, the way her shoulders drop half an inch, the way her voice goes softer instead of sharper. Shelley plays those transitions so truthfully that you believe Carrie has been carrying her own quiet hopes and hurts this whole time, and Noah's chaos is finally forcing her to confront them. That's the kind of supporting performance that can quietly steal an entire movie if you let it, and she absolutely does. The photo booth itself gets funnier and more pathetic the longer the movie goes on. At first, it's this quirky, almost charming little machine tucked in the back of the jazz club. Red curtain a bit faded, buttons worn smooth from years of drunk people pressing them for novelty photos. By the 10th loop, it's become this sad, mocking monument to Noah's obsession. The seat is uncomfortable, the flash is blinding, the mechanical whir sounds more like a tired sigh every time. Yet he keeps climbing back in, because what else is he going to do? That booth isn't just a plot device, it's a mirror. Every time the curtain closes and the lights flash, Noah has to face himself again, sweaty, disheveled, still wearing whatever ridiculous costume the night demanded, and decide whether he's going to keep running from the truth or finally sit with it. The special effects are minimal on purpose. They didn't want to distract from that internal battle with big glowing portals or particle effects. Just a cheap photo booth doing impossible things, and somehow that simplicity makes the magic feel more real. The score keeps threading through those emotional shifts like a lifeline, too. Eric V. Hachikian's piano themes start simple and playful in the early loops, light, jazzy runs that match Noah's initial excitement. But as the night wears him down, they slow, get minor key edges, add these little dissonant notes that mirror his growing frustration. Then, in the quiet aftermath moments, the piano drops almost entirely away, leaving just soft strings or ambient city sounds, and the absence hits harder than any big swell ever could. When a familiar motif finally returns near the end, changed, resolved, warmer, it feels like coming home after a very long trip. The music never overpowers the comedy or the dialogue. It just sits underneath like a good friend who knows exactly when to speak and when to shut up. I think what ultimately makes When We First Met stick with people, even the ones who roll their eyes at the low critic score, is that it treats longing seriously without ever losing its sense of humor about it. It lets Noah be ridiculous and pathetic and selfish and still gives him grace. It lets Avery be complicated and independent and not waiting around for anyone. It lets Carrie be the one who maybe, quietly, has been seeing the whole picture longer than anybody realized. And it lets the audience laugh at all of it, while secretly hoping the characters figure it out. Because we've all been in versions of their shoes at one point or another. So if you're sitting there on a random evening in Satna or anywhere else, feeling that familiar tug of what if, Cue this up. Let it run. Let it be silly and sweet, and a little heartbreaking. Let it remind you that sometimes the universe doesn't give you do-overs in a photo booth, but it does give you new mornings, new conversations, new chances to say the thing you should have said 3 years ago. And sometimes that's more than enough. In the hopeful loops, the quarter feels alive and inviting, full of possibility, like the city is winking at him and saying, "Go get her, kid." In the desperate ones, it turns claustrophobic, the crowds pressing in, the music too loud, the lights too bright. Like New Orleans itself is tired of watching him chase the same ghost down the same narrow streets. That push-pull is so smart. The location isn't just pretty scenery. It mirrors Noah's emotional state without ever saying a word about it. You start noticing how the camera lingers on certain details differently each time. A shuttered shop window reflecting his costume one loop, a puddle from an earlier rain capturing the neon glow another. It's those tiny visual poems that make rewatches addictive, because you're not just watching the same night repeat. You're watching the city react to it, almost like it's quietly judging his choices or gently nudging him toward the answer he's too stubborn to see. One of the quietest strengths of the film is how it never lets the time loop gimmick overshadow the actual human mess at the center. A lot of movies with this premise get so caught up in the mechanics, explaining rules, showing clever variations, piling on escalating absurdity, that the characters start feeling like pawns in a puzzle. When We First Met doesn't do that. The booth is a tool, not the star. The real story is still about a guy who's terrified of being alone with his feelings, a girl who's trying to build something solid after her own heartbreaks, and a best friend who's watching it all unfold with equal parts amusement and concern. John Whittington's script keeps reminding us of that by letting conversations breathe even when the night is resetting. People still talk about normal things, work stress, bad dates, what they want for dinner tomorrow, even though tomorrow might never come for Noah in the same way. Those mundane exchanges make the fantastical element feel grounded. You believe these are real 20-somethings navigating real 20-something problems, even when one of them has a cheat code to the past. Adam DeVine's physicality deserves another shout-out because he uses his whole body to sell the comedy and the pathos. Watch how his posture changes across the loops. Early on, he's loose-limbed, full of nervous energy, shoulders high like he's trying to look confident, even though he's dying inside. As the night wears him down, he starts slumping, head lower, arms heavier, steps slower, like the weight of every failed attempt is literally pressing on him. By the later loops, he's almost unrecognizable in his exhaustion. Hair wrecked, costume askew, eyes red-rimmed but still flickering with that stubborn spark. It's not over-the-top mugging. It's subtle physical storytelling that makes you feel how much this is costing him. And when he finally gets a moment of real connection, whether it's with Avery, Carrie, or even just himself at the piano, his body language opens up again. Shoulders drop, breath steadies, a small smile creeps in. Adam makes those shifts feel earned, and that's why the emotional payoff hits even though you've seen the same night a dozen times. The ensemble keeps giving back in tiny, perfect ways, too. Take the bartender who keeps serving Noah drinks across every timeline. He's barely in the movie, maybe 3 lines total, but each time he pours the same beer or slides the same whiskey with the exact same neutral, "here you go" expression, like he's seen this guy spiral before and will see it again. It's a brilliant little touch, one person who exists outside Noah's chaos, unaffected by the resets, reminding us that the world keeps turning even when one person's stuck. Or the random party guests who keep reappearing in slightly different configurations. The couple dressed as Thing 1 and Thing 2 who are always arguing about whose idea the costume was. The girl in the cat ears who gives Noah the same pitying look every time he tries to flirt badly. They're not just background filler. They're proof that life is happening all around the main characters, full of its own small dramas and joys, whether Noah notices or not. The editing rhythm is another unsung hero here. Early loops are cut quick and snappy to match Noah's manic energy. Fast cuts, rapid dialogue overlaps, punchy music stings. As he gets more tired and more honest, the pace slows, scenes linger. Conversations aren't interrupted by jump cuts. The camera stays put longer on faces, letting reactions play out in real time. That gradual deceleration mirrors his emotional journey so perfectly that you feel it in your gut before you can name it. The editor, Whoever was in the chair for those final passes knew exactly when to pull back and let silence or a single look carry the scene. It's the kind of craft that separates good rom-coms from great ones. And the very last thing I'll say before I finally let this movie rest, for now, When We First Met is the rare comedy that gets funnier and sweeter the more you know the ending. On first watch, you're laughing at the premise and rooting for the obvious outcome. On second watch, you're noticing all the foreshadowing you missed, the way Carrie's eyes linger a second too long, the way Avery's laugh changes when Noah says something real instead of trying too hard, the way Max's sarcasm hides genuine worry. On third watch, you're just happy to spend time with these people again, flaws and all, because they feel like friends you haven't seen in a while. So if it's late in Satna right now, and you're scrolling for something to watch that won't demand too much brain power, but will still leave you feeling something real, this is it. Hit play. Let the piano intro wash over you. Let Noah make every mistake so you don't have to. Let the French Quarter lights flicker across your screen like they're flickering just for you. The way the movie uses color temperature across the different timelines is one of those behind-the-scenes choices that feels almost invisible until you start paying attention, and then you can't unsee it. In the very first loop, the original night when everything still feels full of innocent possibility, everything has this warm, golden-orange glow, like the Halloween lights, and the jazz club lamps are bathing the whole scene in honey. It matches Noah's wide-eyed optimism perfectly. He's still thinking he can charm his way into Avery's heart with a few awkward lines and a lot of hope. As the loops grind on and failure starts stacking up, the lighting cools down bit by bit. Shadows get longer, blues and purples creep in from the streetlights outside. The party feels colder, even though the costumes and music are the same. By the time Noah is deep in his spiral, some scenes look almost desaturated, not black and white dramatic, but just drained enough that you feel how tired he is, how the magic is wearing thin. Then, in the moments where something real finally starts to click, a genuine laugh from Avery, a quiet talk with Carrie, even a solo piano riff that lands right. The warmth creeps back in, subtle at first, then stronger, like the city, and the lighting are conspiring to say, "You're getting warmer, keep going." David Hennings and Ari Sandel didn't shout about this with big, flashy transitions. They just let the color do the emotional heavy lifting, and it works so beautifully that it makes every rewatch feel like discovering a new layer. Another thing that ages really well is how the film handles technology in a way that already feels a little nostalgic, even though it's only from 2018. Everyone's still using iPhones from around that era. The slightly chunkier cases, the home button that hasn't been replaced by Face ID yet, and social media is present but not overwhelming. There are quick glimpses of Instagram stories being posted from the party, a Snapchat filter making someone look like a dog for 2 seconds, but the movie never lets phones become the villain or the savior. Noah doesn't obsessively check Avery's online activity across loops. He's too busy living the disaster in real time. That restraint keeps the story feeling timeless instead of dated. In a few years, when everyone's devices look completely different, this movie will still feel like it could happen tomorrow night, because the heartbreak and the hope aren't tied to the latest app. They're tied to people looking each other in the eye and saying the wrong thing at the wrong moment, or maybe, finally, the right thing at the right one. Max's apartment is another small miracle of production design that doesn't get enough credit. It's the ultimate single guy in his 20s disaster zone. Pizza boxes stacked like modern art, a couch that's seen better decades, video game controllers tangled in cords, posters half peeled from the wall, a fridge that probably only contains beer and expired condiments. Yet it's cozy in its chaos. When Noah crashes there after a bad loop, or when the guys are just hanging out shooting the breeze, the space feels like a safe harbor. It's where Noah can fall apart without judgment, where Max can give him the tough love pep talk while they're both eating cold leftovers straight from the container. That lived-in messiness contrasts so sharply with Avery and Carrie's more curated but still real apartment that it underlines the different worlds these characters inhabit. Noah's comfort zone is sloppy and familiar. Avery's is creative and intentional. The sets aren't just backdrops, they're visual shorthand for who these people are when no one's watching. The Halloween party itself evolves in such clever ways that it never feels like the same scene on repeat. Sure, the core elements stay, the thumping bass, the fog machine haze, the sea of costumes, but the details shift to match Noah's choices. In one loop, he arrives early, and the party's just starting. People are still soberish, conversations are easy, the energy is fresh. In another, he shows up late, and it's already descending into glorious chaos. Someone's doing shots off the balcony, the dance floor is sticky, the playlist has devolved into questionable 2000s Tens Club remixes. In yet another, he tries to skip the party altogether, and the house feels eerily quiet, like the whole night is holding its breath waiting for him to show up and mess it up again. Those variations keep the repetition dynamic. You're never bored because the environment is reacting to him as much as he's reacting to it. One last, tiny, perfect detail that always gets me. The way Noah's voice cracks just a little when he finally says something vulnerable out loud. It's not a big, dramatic moment with tears and swelling strings. It's just Adam letting his voice go raw for half a second on a single word, like sorry or stay or you. And then he swallows it back down because guys like Noah don't do big feelings easily. That crack is so human, so unguarded, that it cuts straight through all the jokes and resets. It's the sound of someone who's run out of clever ways to hide and is finally letting the truth slip out, even if it's terrifying. Moments like that are why this movie stays with people long after the laughs fade. The jazz club sequences are where the movie really finds its soul, and they never stop giving no matter how many times you watch. Every time Noah pushes through that heavy wooden door after another reset, the air inside feels thick with cigarette ghosts from decades past. The low hum of conversation mixing with clinking glasses, and the faint scent of spilled bourbon you can almost smell through the screen. The stage is small, just big enough for the upright piano and a single mic stand, lit by a single warm spotlight that catches the sweat on Adam's forehead as he plays. He doesn't play like a prodigy. He plays like someone who found music when everything else felt too hard, fingers finding familiar patterns even when his mind is a mess. The crowd isn't huge, maybe 20 or 30 people scattered at tables. Some regulars who nod along like they've heard these same riffs 100 nights before. Others tourists who wandered in from Bourbon Street and stayed because the music felt honest. In one loop, the applause is polite but distracted. In another, it's louder, warmer, because Noah finally lets himself play without thinking about Avery watching from the bar. The contrast is subtle but powerful. The same notes, the same room, but the emotion behind them changes everything. Pat O'Brien's real history seeps into those scenes too. That famous dueling pianos tradition, the hurricane cocktails that probably fueled half the bad decisions in New Orleans nightlife over the years, the way the place has hosted legends and nobodies alike. The filmmakers didn't just rent a set, they borrowed a piece of living history and let it color every frame. One of the smartest things the script does is give Carrie her own quiet arc that runs parallel to Noah's chaos without ever stealing the spotlight. Shelley Hennig plays her with this layered coolness. She's funny, she's sharp, she's fiercely loyal to Avery, but underneath there's this undercurrent of someone who's been hurt before and learned how to protect herself with humor and distance. You see it in the way she watches Noah across the room sometimes, not with pity or judgment, but with a kind of weary recognition, like she's seen guys chase the wrong dream and knows exactly how it ends. There's no big, "I've been in love with you all along" speech, thank God. But there are these tiny gestures. The way she lingers a second longer when handing him a drink, the way her laugh softens when he says something genuinely funny instead of trying too hard, the way she calls him out when he's being selfish but never stops showing up for him. It's the kind of performance that rewards attention. On first watch, Carrie is the hilarious best friend. On second watch, she's the emotional compass. On third watch, she's quietly one of the most compelling people in the story. Shelley brings so much life to those unspoken moments that you start wondering what her version of the night would look like if the camera followed her instead. The pacing of the loops themselves is a masterclass in escalation without exhaustion. The first few are fast and frantic. Noah trying everything at once, dialogue overlapping, quick cuts between failed attempts, music pumping to match his adrenaline. But as the resets keep coming, the rhythm slows down deliberately. Scenes stretch. Conversations get room to breathe. Noah starts noticing things he missed before. The way Avery's eyes light up when she talks about a photo project she's working on. The way Carrie's shoulders relax when no one's paying attention to her. The way Ethan is actually kind of a good guy even if he's in the way. Those slower beats let the comedy come from character instead of circumstance. Noah's growing self-awareness makes his screw-ups funnier, because they're more human, more recognizable. Ari Sandel and the editors knew exactly how to balance the high-energy chaos with these quieter, almost meditative stretches. So the movie never feels like it's repeating itself, even though technically it is. The soundtrack choices keep surprising me too, especially how they lean into the New Orleans sound without turning it into a cliché. Beyond the original score's jazzy piano lines that follow Noah like a shadow, there are needle drops that feel perfectly timed. A funky brass riff when the party is peaking, a slow bluesy guitar when Noah's sitting alone on a stoop, even a brief burst of something upbeat and ridiculous when he tries to pull off a bold move and it backfires spectacularly. One track in particular, that Huey Lewis nod, gets reworked just enough across loops that it starts feeling like an inside joke between the movie and the audience. It's playful, but never gimmicky. The music always serves the emotion first, the laughs second. What really seals this as a movie worth your time is how it ends up saying something true about regret without ever getting preachy. Regret isn't the enemy here. It's the teacher. Noah doesn't get to erase his mistakes. He gets to learn from them over and over until the lesson finally sticks. And the lesson isn't some tidy, be yourself and everything works out platitude. It's messier, more honest. Sometimes you have to go through every wrong door before you find the right one. Sometimes the person you think is perfect for you is just the one who helps you become ready for someone else, or for yourself. The movie lets that truth sit without forcing it down your throat, and that restraint is what makes the final moments feel so satisfying. The one thing I haven't shut up about yet, and I can't believe I've waited this long, is the way this movie smells. Yeah, I said smells. Close your eyes for a second while you're watching and just breathe with the screen. You can literally smell this film. You smell the warm beer spilled on the wooden floor of the jazz club, the sweet sticky hurricane cocktails sweating on every table, the faint cigarette smoke clinging to people's costumes, even though nobody's allowed to light up inside anymore. You smell Avery's perfume when she leans in close, something light and citrusy mixed with the October night air. You smell the river, that damp, earthy Mississippi scent that sneaks into every open door in the quarter. You smell Carrie's coconut shampoo when she hugs Noah a little too long in one of the later loops. You smell fried dough and powdered sugar from the beignet cart that rolls by at 3 a.m. when they are all walking home, half drunk and laughing at nothing. You smell the inside of that photo booth, old vinyl, hot bulbs, cheap plastic curtain that's been touched by 1,000 sweaty hands. New Orleans doesn't just look gorgeous in this movie, it leaks into your nose, into your skin, into your memory, like it's determined to make you homesick for a city you might never have visited. And that's why this film hits different when you watch it late at night, alone, with the lights off and maybe a drink in your hand. Because it starts feeling less like a movie and more like a night you actually lived. You remember your own Halloween parties that went too far or not far enough. You remember the girl who laughed at your stupid joke and then disappeared into the crowd forever. You remember the friend who looked at you like they wanted to say something huge but swallowed it instead. You remember the exact smell of the bar where you played that one song on the jukebox and thought, just for 3 minutes, that everything was finally going to work out. The way the movie handles the passage of those 3 years between the Halloween night and the present is so understated it almost sneaks past you. But once you notice it, it changes everything. We don't get big time jump montages with calendar pages flipping or haircuts dramatically changing. Instead, it's in the small, lived details that accumulate like dust on a shelf nobody bothered to wipe. Noah's apartment in the present is a little more cluttered than it was in flashbacks. More takeout containers, a guitar leaning against the wall that wasn't there before, a stack of unread mail on the counter. Avery's photography portfolio has grown. You catch glimpses of new prints on her wall, bolder compositions, shots that show she's been out in the world chasing light instead of waiting for it. Carrie's hair is a shade different, her laugh a touch more confident, like the years have sharpened her edges without dulling her spark. Ethan's suit fits a little better, his smile a little easier, proof that life kept moving forward for everyone while Noah kept trying to claw his way back. Those tiny evolutions make the resets feel heavier. Every time Noah jumps, he's not just risking one night. He's gambling with the quiet growth that happened in the years after. The film never spells it out, but it shows you. Time doesn't pause for anyone, not even for love. And that unspoken truth makes the final choice, whatever form it takes, land with real weight. There's also this beautiful symmetry in how the movie opens and closes with music. It starts with Noah at the piano in the present, playing something soft and a little sad, fingers moving like they're remembering a song he used to know by heart. The notes are simple, almost hesitant, like he's afraid to play too loud and wake up the regret. Then, through all the chaos of the loops, the piano keeps coming back, sometimes frantic, sometimes angry, sometimes broken, but always there. And when the story finally circles home, the music returns to something close to that opening piece, but changed. The hesitation is gone. The notes land cleaner, fuller, like the player has finally figured out what he was trying to say all along. It's not a triumphant swell. It's quiet, earned resolution. Eric V. Hachikian's score never oversells it. He lets the piano speak for itself, and in doing so, it says more about Noah's journey than any monologue ever could. That musical bookend is one of those details that makes you want to immediately start the movie over, just to hear how differently those same chords hit the second time around. One more thing I love that barely gets mentioned. The costumes aren't just funny. They're symbolic in the sneakiest way. Garth from Wayne's World isn't random. It's Noah trying to hide behind someone else's cool, someone else's confidence, because his own feels too small. Avery as Dottie Hinson from A League of Their Own is perfect. A woman who's tough, talented, a little guarded, but still lets herself have fun. Carrie's outfits shift subtly across loops too, sometimes bolder, sometimes softer, mirroring how she's reacting to Noah's increasingly bizarre behavior. Even the background characters' costumes start to feel like commentary. The egg and bacon duo who keep fighting are a perfect little metaphor for relationships that look cute from the outside but are cracking underneath. Nothing is accidental. The wardrobe team turned Halloween into a quiet language the movie speaks without ever drawing attention to it. And the very last loop, the one that matters, isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Noah stops performing, stops scheming, stops trying to engineer the ideal outcome. He just shows up as himself, flawed, nervous, a little hungover from too many emotional resets. And in that simplicity, everything clicks into place. Not because the universe finally gave him a free pass, but because he finally stopped fighting the night and started listening to it. That shift from control to surrender is the real magic trick, and the film pulls it off without fireworks, without speeches, just with two people looking at each other like they're seeing each other for the first time in years. It's so understated it almost feels dangerous, like the movie is daring you to believe that real connection doesn't need a grand gesture, just honesty and timing that finally lines up. The photo booth curtain, that thin, faded red velvet thing, becomes almost a character of its own the more you watch. At first, it's just a prop, something silly and cheap that Noah ducks behind like it's no big deal. But by the middle of the film, every time that curtain swishes closed, it feels heavier. The rings scrape along the metal rod with this tired little rattle. The fabric bunches up unevenly because someone's yanked it too many times, and when the flash goes off, you can see the dust motes floating in the beam like tiny stars in a dying galaxy. Noah starts treating it differently too, no longer bursting in with drunk confidence, but pausing outside for a breath, fingers brushing the curtain like he's touching an old scar. It's the portal to every version of himself he's tried and failed to be. And by the end, when he steps behind it one last time, the swish sounds almost gentle, like the movie itself is exhaling. They didn't need fancy effects. They just needed that curtain to carry the weight of too many regrets and one fragile hope. It's genius in its simplicity. There's also this underappreciated thread about how Noah's music evolves right alongside his heart. In the earliest loops, he plays safe, crowd-pleasing covers, stuff that gets claps but doesn't say anything real. His fingers move fast, flashy, trying to impress. As the night drags him through failure after failure, the playing changes. He starts missing notes on purpose, letting them hang unresolved, turning simple melodies into something rawer, sadder, more honest. There's one loop where he just stops mid-song, hands hovering over the keys, staring at them like they betrayed him, and the silence in the club is louder than any chord. Then later, when something finally shifts inside him, the music comes back softer but surer, not perfect, but present. It's like the piano is the only thing that never resets. It remembers every version of Noah that sat at it, and it plays them all back until he's ready to hear the right one. Adam DeVine's commitment to making those piano scenes feel authentic, He practiced for weeks, turns what could have been background noise into a quiet, emotional spine running through the whole story. The ensemble's chemistry in the group scenes is another layer that keeps deepening. When Noah, Max, Avery, Carrie, and Ethan are all in the same frame, at the party, at brunch the next day, wherever, the energy crackles in ways that feel improvised even when they're scripted. You catch these micro-interactions, Max shooting Avery a quick, "You good?" glance when Noah's rambling, Carrie elbowing Ethan playfully to diffuse tension, Avery's hand brushing Noah's arm for half a second before she pulls away. None of it's lingered on, none of it's explained, but it builds this web of unspoken history that makes the stakes feel bigger. These aren't strangers thrown together for plot convenience. They're people who've shared birthdays, bad breakups, hungover mornings, inside jokes that go back years. The film trusts you to feel that history without spelling it out. And because of that trust, every potential fracture hurts more, and every small reconciliation lands sweeter. One tiny moment that always catches me off guard. In one of the later loops, when Noah's finally starting to let go of the fantasy version of the night, he orders a drink at the bar, and the bartender, same guy, same neutral face every time, slides it over without a word. But this time Noah says, "Thanks," like he actually means it, like he's seeing the bartender as a person for the first time instead of just part of the scenery. The bartender gives the tiniest nod, barely perceptible, and keeps wiping the same glass. It's nothing. It's everything. It's Noah starting to exist in the moment instead of performing for it. Those throwaway beats are where the real growth hides. The jazz club door has this particular creak every single time Noah pushes it open, a low, groaning hinge that's probably been there since the place opened in the 1930s. In the first loop, it's just background noise, something you barely register amid the party chatter and the thump of bass leaking from the main room. But by the 10th or 11th reset, that creak starts sounding like an old friend who's tired of seeing you show up looking worse each time. Noah starts hesitating before he crosses the threshold, hand on the brass knob, listening to the city outside fade and the muffled piano inside rise. The sound design team layered that creak so subtly that it becomes a rhythm. One creak for hope, two for desperation, three for resignation, until the very last time he walks through, when the door swings smooth and quiet, like the building itself finally decided to let him in without protest. It's one of those microscopic details that makes the world feel lived in, like New Orleans didn't just lend its streets and bars, it lent its history, its wear, its patience. There's a beautiful parallel between Noah's piano playing and the way he learns to love. Both start stiff and performative, full of showy runs and forced smiles, and both slowly strip down to something simpler, truer, less about impressing anyone, and more about being heard. In one loop, he tries to wow the room with a flashy jazz standard, fingers flying, but the notes feel hollow because he's playing for approval instead of feeling. Later, when he's exhausted every trick and every lie, he sits down and plays something slow, almost a lullaby version of the same tune. No embellishments, just the melody naked and a little cracked. The crowd quiets without being asked. A couple at the bar stops arguing. Even the bartender pauses mid-wipe. Adam's hands look smaller on the keys in that moment, like he's finally small enough to fit inside his own life. The music doesn't solve anything, it just makes space for whatever comes next. That's the quiet miracle of the score. It never promises a happy ending, but it promises that showing up honestly is enough to change the air in the room. One scene that always catches me in the throat is when Noah and Avery are alone on the balcony overlooking the river, away from the party noise for just a minute. The Crescent City Connection bridge lights are smearing gold across the water. A barge horn sounds low and long in the distance, and they're both holding plastic cups of something cheap and too sweet. Avery talks about a photo she took earlier that day. Nothing profound, just light hitting a cracked sidewalk in a way that made her stop and kneel down with her camera. Noah listens, really listens, without interrupting to steer it back to himself. For once, he doesn't fill the silence with a joke or a plan or a desperate pivot. He just nods, sips, watches her face light up when she describes the shot. Alexandra plays that moment with such unguarded joy that you feel the shift in gravity. This isn't about winning her anymore. It's about wanting her to keep being the person who stops for cracked sidewalks and golden light. The scene lasts maybe 90 seconds, but it's the emotional hinge the whole movie turns on. Proof that connection isn't built on grand gestures or perfect timing. It's built on two people deciding, in the same breath, to pay attention. The film also does something rare with male friendship that most rom-coms skip over. It lets Max be angry. Not cartoon angry, not punchline angry. Real, quiet, fed-up angry. There's a moment in the present-day timeline where Max finally lays it out for Noah. "You've been gone for 3 years, man. Even when you're standing right here, you're gone." King Bach delivers it without raising his voice. Just this steady, disappointed stare that hurts more than any yelling ever could. It's not a fight scene, it's a reckoning. And Noah doesn't have a snappy comeback. He just takes it, because he knows it's true. That scene gives Max dimension beyond funny sidekick. He's the one who's been carrying the weight of the friendship while Noah was busy chasing a ghost. When they reconcile later, not with hugs or apologies that tie everything in a bow, but with a simple "I'm trying, okay?" and a shared beer, it feels earned. Real male friendship isn't always easy laughs. Sometimes it's calling each other out and then staying anyway.